Today, we're joined by the powerhouse tenor saxophonist and composer, Ken Fowser. Since arriving in New York in 2005, Ken's carved out a unique voice in jazz, blending traditional harmony with fresh contemporary ideas. He's worked with some of the greatest in jazz, including David Hazeltine, Ugonna Okegwo, Willie Jones III, and his debut album, Standing Tall, topped the JazzWeek Radio Chart for 7 weeks straight. With a residency at the Django in New York and international recognition, including an Indonesian Grammy nomination, Ken Fowser continues to push jazz forward. So let's dive right in. So Ken, good to see you.
You too, Abe. Yeah. I'm really glad you got that Indonesian Grammy nominee in there.
Yeah,
I need to update my bio, but it's really great to be on here, and definitely a fan of your podcast here. You're doing great things and churning out a lot of interviews with great musicians, and yeah, thanks for asking me.
Oh no, yeah, it's my pleasure. I mean, I'm gonna backtrack now because I mentioned your New York City arrival in 2005. Around 2008, I started going to Smoke to hear you play, like actually pretty regularly. The Mike Ladon group had a residency there, and then you used to play in the band afterwards. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, well, when Mike played there, Mike, I think, did Tuesdays for years, and it might have appeared to be a residency, but it was I think it was, if it was Tuesday, it was just me coming out and sitting in, because I pretty much was going out almost religiously on Tuesdays to hear Mike and Peter Bernstein and Eric Alexander, Joe Farnsworth.
I'm talking about with Sam.
With Sam. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think that was Wednesday with Sam Raderman.
Mm-hmm.
At one point I was like the king of Smoke and Smalls late night. I mean, at one point I think I was leading the late night on Fridays, and then I was playing with Sam Raderman the late night on Wednesdays, and then I was hosting the jam session at Smalls on Tuesdays, which at the time started at 1:30 in the morning. But yeah, I was making the rounds back.
Well, you said days. you use that in the past tense. Have you just gotten a little bit older and want to pass the torch forward to somebody else, or just other things in life, or just kind of taking precedent over that, like because there's no reason you couldn't be leading those sessions, that sort of thing? Or is it, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think the climate of New York has changed a bit post-pandemic. Smoke, for example, they don't have late sets anymore. As a matter of fact, they've kind of moved to more of a Village Vanguard style booking, where it's the same band Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think they change it up on Wednesdays, but they no longer have these late sets. They pretty much wrap things up around midnight, which I think is kind of just a reflection of the state of New York. I don't think people are going out as late as they used to. In Smalls, I actually just played the late show just this past Friday, which now starts at 12 a.m. as opposed to 1:30 a.m. But I'm definitely still down to do it. I think there's definitely some kind of magic in these late night sets. So I am a bit older, and I am very happy to go to bed at 9:30 p.m., but I'm also happy to take a nap and get out there and strut my stuff at midnight.
So you're open to doing it, but you just go to sleep a little earlier.
Yeah, I'm open to doing it, but I also just think that there's much less opportunity to do it. I mean, off the top of my head, I think there's only a few clubs that have these late night sets, that most of which turn into jam sessions. There's Smalls and Mesro, and then
and Smoke used to have the session on Mondays, I think.
Yeah, Mondays used to be.
And that's no more, right? That's no more.
Right. Yeah, they're not even open on Mondays or Tuesdays anymore. It's just Wednesday through Sunday. But yeah, John Farnsworth used to host the session on Mondays, which was great. And LaDon used to do the organ thing every Tuesday. and then they had different bands on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then just the headliners on Friday and Saturday. But yeah, not a lot of people are hanging out super late until 4 o'clock in the morning,
Well, you know
like
why,
they
right?
used.
Like, look, this is
Why?
what it is. This is it. This is the reason why. You know?
The what, just technology or
Yeah.
streaming? Are you referring to streaming
No,
the
just
shows? Or?
technology. Just technology,
Yeah. Hmm.
in my
Yeah.
opinion.
It could be. I mean, I don't really know what it is, but I mean, it's very clear that people aren't hanging out as late as they used to for whatever reason.
Yeah. I want to, but before we move on to the next subject, who did you study saxophone with again? Like primarily in
Uh,
college?
in college, I studied with a lot of different people, not just saxophone players, but I originally started at the University of the Arts, and I studied with some great local saxophonists in the Philadelphia area, Chris Farr and Tony Salicandro and Ron Kerber. But
You know, they're
I
closing
also,
too, right? They're closing.
they're done. Yeah, it's a shame. I think they closed down due to some kind of financial issues. I heard that Temple may be trying to assimilate parts of the program, which I think is great. But I studied with Larry McKenna. I tried to get lessons with John Swana, who's one of my favorite
Trumpeter.
trumpeters. Learned a lot from him. And then when I went to William Patterson, I studied with Don Braden, and then I made sure I got lessons with Harold Mayburn, great, obviously legendary piano player. And those lessons were great. They were just kind of like more like just playing duo with him, starting a song that I'd never heard, and trying to figure it out using my ear, which was very challenging for me. So it was these were great lessons. And then in graduate school, I studied with Ralph Lalama and Eric Alexander. I'm a big believer in trying to study with as many people as you can and getting as many different viewpoints as you can. And I also kind of believe like even if something's a bad experience, you can learn from that. Like
Sure.
you learn from the good, you learn from the bad, and I think that's kind of what makes us grow as individuals is taking what we like and learning from what we don't like. So
Was
that's why I mean I've studied with a lot of different people, and that's partly the reason why.
right. Well, I mean, was it weird to play after Eric at Smoke when he would play the one set and then you would play after? Because I've never been in a situation where one of my former teachers played and then I had to play after them. I mean, to me, it's it must feel very, special, but it also could feel a little strange. I don't know. Did you have any like thoughts when that was happening? Because it's a very unique position to be in.
Yeah, it was a little weird, and first of all, it was an honor to play after him because he's been one of my biggest musical influences and heroes since I was about 16 years old. But the only reason why it was a little weird is because I would always go and I would check out his set before I would play, out of not just out of respect, but just because I wanted to, and I always learn from Eric, and I always learn from going out and listening to other people. But it was a little weird because I sounded so much like him that it would almost be like he would finish his set and then I would go up and I would be playing, and I'd be like, stop sounding like Eric. Like stop, like, oh, that was like a Eric-ism kind of thing. Like stop doing that. Like
You
he
mean? Do
just
you mean
played
like
before you.
you felt like you were comparing yourself to him in a sense? Like,
Like in my head, I'd be on stage playing like after him, and and he would be, you know, in the audience. And I remember consciously like wanting to not sound like the person I'm playing after. It's
yeah,
like a comedian going up, you go up after Jerry Seinfeld or something, and then you're like, what's the deal
well,
with
yeah, I know,
Will?
I know.
And like you're doing the same shtick or something, not shtick, but you know, you kind of want to have an individual voice and not sound like a clone after you're playing after
Well,
that
that's the thing.
person.
I mean, like, it's got to. I mean, I'm sure. it maybe a little felt a little bit like this is strange, playing after this, but then there's got to be like, people might start comparing, which I hate comparison because once you put someone, you're your own person on the instrument, and once they categorize you and put you in a box, it's just like that's ridiculous, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. And I remember when I was at studying at University of the Arts, I was really sounding like Eric, and I had this one teacher, and he's like, "Man, you should take every Eric record that you have and like throw it out the window and stop listening to him." And he, the point of what he was saying was coming from a good place, even though that may sound harsh. He was saying like, check out other people. Like, there's other people out there. You're you're too influenced by this one particular player. And I actually took it to heart, and I didn't throw his records out the window, but I made a really conscious effort to not listen to him for about a good year. But, and checking out transcribing other players, and it was good. But I remember this one time, I would still sometimes occasionally go see him play live. I remember there's this one lick on Coltrane's Crescent album, and it was like I felt like I made this discovery, and I was taking it through 12 keys, and it was like I've never heard anybody play this idea or phrase. And then I think I went out and saw Eric play with LaDon on a Tuesday night. And this was like a long phrase, it wasn't like a couple notes. It was like
Like a four-bar phrase.
yeah, like a 4-bar phrase. And Eric played it that night. And I was just like, you know, even if I'm consciously like trying to not be influenced by somebody, you like what you like. And like obviously Eric has his own influences, and he liked the same thing that I liked, and he came to that and I came to it in a different way. So, you know, I don't think like trying to control what you like or forcing certain tastes upon one person is necessarily beneficial. I feel like you're going to come to the same conclusion kind of no matter what. And as long as you're genuine to yourself and what you like and what you don't like, I think that's how you form a personality and a personal sound.
Yeah, I mean, at least me, I could only speak for myself, but we get caught up in so much of this type of things that you're talking about, and it can really ruin the experience, and it takes a long time to get out of that, you know?
Yeah. A lot of it is like university and college related, I
I
think.
think
And
so.
sometimes you almost have to like undo
Yeah.
certain, but that's what I was kind of saying earlier. Like you take the good with the bad, and you come to these conclusions, and that's how we develop. And I'm a big believer that, we're constantly changing and constantly evolving. I mean, especially with jazz, like my ears, the way that I hear are completely different. I remember when I first got into the saxophone, I really loved smooth jazz. I used to listen to like David
Like
Sanborn and
Boney
Kenny G,
James.
when Boney James and Dave Koz, and
My mom has a huge crush on Boney James. She'd probably leave, I don't know if she'd leave my father, but yeah, she loves him.
I mean they're all heartthrobs in their own way. Maybe not Kenny G, but you know, but that segued into you know discovering Dexter Gordon and Hank Mobley, and but like when I was listening to the smooth jazz stuff, I didn't like the more pure jazz stuff because I didn't understand it and I couldn't hear what was happening. It just sounded like too much was going on at the same time. But the more I listened and the more that I developed, the more I could hear these different things. And then I really I loved Dexter Gordon and early Sonny Rollins, but there were people that like I didn't like at the time, like this is like the Jazz Police. This is the reflection of me at the time as like a 16-year-old 17-year-old kid, but like I didn't really like Joe Henderson's sound. I didn't understand what he was playing. I didn't really like certain like Wayne Shorter
Well, no,
things.
I get. When I first heard Wayne Shorter, it took me some time to
Yeah, like
understand.
I only liked early Train, and like the later Train, I I didn't get. And, as I progressed as a musician, like I love Joe Henderson's sound. I love Wayne Shorter's sound. I love Wayne Shorter's compositions. There's still some kind of later train stuff that I still don't get, but I like it way more than I used to. And like different styles of music. Like I love Brazilian music now, and just part of the thing about being a musician is just the way that we evolve and the way that we hear things, and how it's kind of like I'm just always discovering new things that I like, if that makes any sense.
No, no, absolutely. It's a journey. It's not like this is what we listen to and that's it. It's like I'm on a let me look at my phone. Like who am I on? What kick am I on this week? It's like what albums that okay, Duke Pearson and Lester Young and Bud Powell. Like that's the most recent records I bought, you know? So
Yeah, yeah, killer.
it's all
Have you heard the new Joe Henderson with McCoy Tyner? That's
oh
the other
come
thing
on,
that's
man. I
kind of
bought that when the day it dropped.
yeah, yeah.
I wait
The
of
other,
course.
the
Amazing.
other amazing thing about this is like I just saw that there's a new Kenny Dorham album being released, and I mean we're talking about these giants of the art form that have passed away, but people are still unearthing these gems, and they're being released,
Oh
and
yeah, man. My
it's
favorite record came out like Coltrane record came out in like 2008 or something like that. You know.
with Monk.
No,
The
the one down, one up half note album, the
Oh yeah,
26
that's
minute
killer.
solo.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's crazy. And I mean, I used to listen to that all the time, but you know, it's a journey. I totally get what you're saying. Are you in your career now? Are you still longing for certain things in your career? Like, are you in a good place? Like, as far as what you want to be doing in the music, or are there still things that like on the back of your mind that you know want to be pursuing, so to speak?
I I think I'm obviously I want to keep playing and keep writing. I got pretty into. I mean, talk about speaking of changing and developing. Like when I first was out playing, I was pretty much only playing standards and just still trying to learn the music, and I'm still trying to learn the music. But that shifted into leading gigs and trying to compose and write more of my own music. So I'm still doing that, and also just playing with different people, like playing regularly with different people. I think is a really good thing to do because
You use the word
you're
different. That's
building.
a different is important.
Yeah, yeah. I've had like all different. I've had several different bands that I've gotten to play with regularly, and then record with, and then change it up, and it's so interesting, just especially from a compositional standpoint. Duke Ellington used to write for certain members of his band. I find that to be very interesting, and I've done a bit of that. And you can put the same composition in front of one rhythm section and put it in front of a different rhythm section, and they can at times interpret it completely differently, or they can try something that might throw you off, that maybe maybe I hate it, or maybe I really like it, or maybe a new introduction or outro to a song. So all this stuff is, it always makes it interesting. It never makes it old. My career, I mean, one thing I would like to do is get back to. I went to Europe once to play, and I had a
As a band
whole
leader?
as a band leader. It wasn't like my band because just it's not very cost effective to fly out, for New York musicians. It was mostly pickup bands out there, which was a great
Did
experience.
you ever
And
see Eyes Wide Shut?
yeah, of course,
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, when he has the band, he's like, "Oh, is this your band?" He's like, "No, it's a pickup band." And
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh yeah, the band sucked."
I mean, it would be a dream to tour like with an actual working band, but it just doesn't seem like that's reality these days. But I had a whole other tour lined up that COVID wiped out, and then I got kind of a little depressed about that situation. But
It was like like a really good run, like that was on the books for 2020, like, and then just
yeah, I was supposed to play in Norway and Stockholm and Germany and Paris and the Netherlands, and like, I do all this myself. I set it up. It
Did
took
they didn't like willing to work with you to reschedule this stuff, or it
Yeah,
just
they were all cool about it, but the state of like coming back from the pandemic, it kind
right?
of took, it took so long that I was a bit disillusioned by everything. So I didn't really try to full court press for them to like honor these gigs that were originally booked like 2.5 years ago, So just touring and performing more. But my career's kind of gone a lot of different ways. It's kind of gone more towards like the music business side, just booking different clubs and producing different shows. And I'm doing some work currently with a nonprofit like arts education group in New Jersey that has been pretty fulfilling so far. So my whole thing is, as far as a career, as long as I'm doing something directly related to music and
Oh
being
yeah, well
around
that's the thing. I mean, it sounds like the career is multifaceted, which is very, you know, it just goes with the times. It's 2025.
yeah, yeah, totally.
But musicians want to run from that instead of embracing it, which I think is not very good. But you're talking about, and that's important.
Yeah, I think it's important to embrace these things, and I think all these things actually make, for me at least, they make me a stronger player, a stronger composer, a stronger band leader. When I am performing, and they give different perspectives on different things. I think it's, you're embracing it with what you're doing with this podcast. I think it's a great thing. I'm sure you can benefit positively from this with your own guitar playing. I'm sure you can
Well,
take
I think,
balls of wisdom and,
yeah,
and implement it in certain ways.
I had a total shift in like my playing, like after, maybe I've done 125 of these, but just having these conversations with people, like I came to a realization, like the only way I'm gonna be able to really, like, I know I can play, pretty good, but like unless I give up control, like of wanting to play well, then that's the only way I'll be able to be in it. And that took me like 20 years to realize. But just talking with people made it happen,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
which is
totally.
crazy.
Yeah, my approach used to be much more self-centered and singular. Like, I want to go out and have this big tenor sound and rip and be able to play fast and solo the best that I can. And now I think more about the larger picture of the people that I want to play with, the people that I want to surround myself with, the compositions that I want to play, the reaction of the audience, the bigger picture of what I'm doing, as opposed to just me, me, me. I want to go in and kind of shred. And even from a listening perspective, if I go out and hear somebody with that mentality, I'm kind of not really drawn to them. I'm drawn to like the presentation as a whole. I saw a great young piano player named Tyler Bullock at the Jazz Gallery the other week, and I was really blown away, not just his piano playing, but his compositions, the way he talked on the microphone to the audience and kind of gave perspective as to what each composition was about, the band that he picked, the way that they interpreted the music, the way the audience was really engaged. Just as I get older, I try to look at the bigger picture. I think it's really important. So
Yeah, I mean, this is all this, goes, I don't want to use that word journey again, but this is all just a part of it. And
yeah, it's funny how often that word is used
well, I think
in
it's
this
the
day and
right
age.
word that will work with it, right?
Yeah, it makes me think of like like Lord of the Rings, like we're going on a journey or a quest or something like that. But it is a very accurate word
Yeah,
to.
because there's no end.
There's no end, and everybody's journey is different, and
Right.
so
It's interesting. I used to hear stories about other, the older jazz musicians, like the masters, like they would be thinking about the same stuff. Like one person would be pissed off about another person's career. Like he doesn't have his career, but then that person would bet they didn't have that person's career, if it makes sense.
yeah,
Like two people who like this person wants this person's career, this person wants that person's career, but it's still everyone has their journey.
sure, yeah. It's like a mutual admiration society in certain ways with certain musicians, but
Do you hear younger players who, you know, as far as tenor players go, who have really knocked you out in the last, couple of years? Anyone that you like?
yeah, Abdias, Armenteros, Chris Lewis. There's a lot. There's all these tenor players that are going to Grant Stewart's school
Oh, I
that
heard
are.
about that school. He's going to be on the podcast also.
Yeah, he's great. They're just like freaks, like in the best way possible. Like talk about like just total command of the instrument and language and great sounds that.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the musicians are just there's more and more of them, so the opportunities need to be there for them as well. Whether it's podcast places to play, them creating it's got to grow. It can't it's got to grow with the number of people, the influx.
Yeah, and there's a bunch that I'm not mentioning, but the thing that I'm most exciting about hearing these young guys is how that they're going to develop into band leaders and composers and really kind of take this mastery that they have of the instrument at such a young age and and really kind of present the music in their own way. I'm excited to check that out, if
Yeah,
that
no,
makes
I
any
mean
sense.
it's if only jazz school. Like if someone asked me, should I go to jazz to go study music in college? Like I think at this point I would say like go to Grant Stewart's thing
Yeah,
and get a
totally.
good get a good private teacher, go hear music, go like everything. I mean, I was talking to my friend last night, he's a piano player, and it's like we were talking about just our thinking and our systems. Like no one taught us this shit at school. Not one person taught us this. How do we think when we play?
Yeah, totally. I mean, college for me, one of the most beneficial things was just like the connections with the
I was like, I know
students.
exactly what you're gonna say. It's almost
Yeah,
scary.
yeah, and yeah, I think Grant School, from what I know about it, it seems to kind of cut right to the point of small group interact, like small group setting with a teacher and private lessons, and the fact that it's in New York. But yeah, the main education is just for me, like going out in Philadelphia and going to the jam sessions, and when I first
Are
moved
you
to
in
New York.
Philly now? Is that where you live in Philly?
No, I'm in Astoria, Queens, but
Okay, you live in
when
Queens.
I grew up in South Jersey, so like when I was at UArts, I was just going out to the pretty much the main education was like you know going to Ortlieb's and getting to sit in with Mickey Roker, Byron Landam, and kind of getting my butt kicked and in various different ways. And the same with New York. So yeah, that I mean the main education is definitely on the bandstand. There are beneficial things to university, but there are also negative things that, like I was saying earlier, like you almost have to correct certain teachings that aren't really applicable in
Yeah.
certain regards, if that makes any sense.
No, I think you're totally right. It's just well, I hope that I mean, listen, not that I want the jazz educations they need to change their approach in certain aspects, especially like kids need to learn the business.
Oh my God, the any music business class I had in college was terrible. I remember in graduate school, I was actually going to graduate school at a Purchase, and Spike Wilner was there, and I just remember I think like the teacher for the business of music class like failed him,
Oh no.
and Spike is like one of the most prolific businessman and has done so many great things with owning Smalls and Mesro, and not just that, but like
I'm actually speaking to him next week too. So
oh, awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
I said hi, but yeah, it's just the problem with some of these universities is you have these professors that are just kind of out of touch with reality. But yeah,
Yeah, it's true.
there should be like a social media course involved with that, because social media is, I think it's pretty important.
Use
And
it or get left behind.
exactly, or there should be a course on how to do taxes. So many people, so many band leaders don't have corp set up. I wonder how they do. I just did my taxes yesterday, but there's, if you're getting paid $1,000 and you're paying $800 of that to your sidemen, and you can't write off that $800, it just looks like you made $1,000 and you're
Absolutely.
paying.
Yeah, you have to have these deductions ready
Yeah,
to
but
go.
yeah, things like that. I mean, so many people don't know about this stuff, and it's like you should be teaching us this. If we're paying
No,
all
I
this
agree.
money
Yeah.
to go to university, it shouldn't be like something where you figure out on your own. Where there's so many things like that that I had to figure out on my own, that I don't think, even to this day, I don't know of any music programming talking about how to do your taxes as a musician, and it's just basic things like that, music copyrights and all kinds of things.
Yeah. No, I think no, this Ken has been so great to catch up. I hope we can do it again. That's why I keep the episodes to 30 minutes so there can always be another one.
Part deux. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Part
man.
two, for
Part two,
sure.
part three.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, Abe. Thanks so much, man.
Of course.
Appreciate it.